Audio. Okay. Hello, anybody who was already waiting. Let's just get everything set up here. Wait. YouTube, load, get over itself. Set that. Usually it has that thing I need to dismiss. Apparently not this time. So live and live, those both synced. That's ready. Sorry, I had to blow some dust off the screen. All that's up and ready. Is Epic Pen working? Yes, it is. Excellent. Okay. And so I found out Jacob Leach was the $250 person. So thanks to him again. That was unexpected and random, but that was awesome. So let's see who we got for. Let's wait a few minutes. Had something I was gonna look at while waiting a little bit. I forgot what it was. But anyways, let's at least get this bucket of lies up. Look at that amazing collapse and stability. Holding around 77 per barrel despite no actual real change. There was a brief period we'll talk about in a minute on Wednesday and Thursday when some ships did leave the strait, but then it got closed again immediately afterwards because Israel immediately just started bombing Lebanon again because why not? Uh, I mean, they kind of publicly declared they were going to do that anyways and said that the agreement doesn't mean anything. So, not exactly the most unexpected thing in the world. Oh, we're actually going up fast this time. Okay, so to start things off with, blah, 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 blah. The agreement got signed between the US and Iran and was it ended up being a deal to give Iran $400 billion in total, 100 billion directly and 300 billion through the quote unquote private investment fund. So 400 billion in total. However, uh, within a few hours after that, Trump started having a meltdown. And where was it? Here was one of the ones in person where he insisted that the deal signed where Iran literally gets everything it wants, and all the US and the rest of the world gets is a restoration of the Strait of Hormuz to the exact same way it was before, uh, is effectively unconditional surrender by the Islamic Republic of Iran. And that the $400 billion thing is not real. Fake news. They're finished. They get no money, not 10 cents. So bipolar flip flopping and abject denial and complete senile mental downward spiral. So I'd really love to hear out the bullet points of anyone who's like still full cult member Zeke Heiling and saying that this is like the greatest dude in the history of presidents. So while he was having his meltdown with the press, the Israeli press in Israel also had their own meltdown. They draw eyebrows too to make it an extra angry face. Had their own meltdown about how the U.S. Signed a deal, quote unquote, behind their back, despite the fact that literally everything was public and everyone knew this is what was being signed. So they started, after being some of the ones that sucked the administration's dick the most, they started bashing the admin. And where's some of the stuff from, oh, yeah, so even publicly from the actual like White House pressers themselves, the administration has started saying that Israel should maybe consider not biting the hand that feeds you. So the gulf between the US and Israel is, in fact, actually growing pretty quickly. And every time they do something that makes that lowers their U.S. support further, Israel continues to keep just doubling down on it. So, for 2 days, the strait was actually open, and about 20 tankers left. I think it was, I think, don't quote me, I think it was 12, either 11 or 12 were Iranian, some of the Iranian tankers that have all been just sitting there piled up near Bandar Abbas since the blockade started, that all made a dash for the exit, and then another 8 or so that were a mix of UAE, Saudi, Kuwaiti, Iraqi, etc., that also got to leave, along with 2 LNG tankers from Qatar, and some container ships and stuff also, obviously. So a few dozen vessels in total, but about 20 actual oil tankers did get to exit, and a few more entered to start filling up under their governing authorities' false assumptions that everything was going to be all nice and well now. But then, after 2 days, the IDF started intensively bombing Lebanon again just yesterday. So Iran, in response, said, well, violated the terms and conditions, deals off. And so the strait was closed, but it looks like it's only 90% closed this time, as they are letting, excuse me, they are letting a very small trickle of ships out. But whereas it was up into the double digits per day for a couple days before the IDF resumed bombing Lebanon, now over the last 24 hours, it was only 7. So the actual everything is all good and open is no longer the case, although it is actually now not going back to zero. It is kind of slightly sort of open, but also basically isn't in terms of like rate of traffic. So now uh, we, the US and Israel, are having an even bigger heated back and forth with each other, and Trump's having a cuss and swear storm on the phone with Netanyahu. But despite the fact that nothing really changed and a select number of tankers got out, but the actual oil supply and stuff, the actual flow and distribution has not been reestablished, the oil market didn't really care, still collapsed the price anyways, and is, down there, which is going to result in actual fuel and product price collapses, which is going to result in restored consumption, which is going to exhaust the various inventories even quicker. Uh, so U.S. strategic petroleum reserves continue getting pulled from, obviously. We're up to around 420 million pre-war, and now they're down to about 330. Around 250, I think, is uh, the area where they're not supposed to, by law, be drawn down below, and somewhere around 140 to 160 is the area where You can still theoretically suck oil out, but the rate at which you can get oil out of them will drop off precipitously. And the commercial inventories in Cushing, in particular, in Oklahoma, uh, are were down to a little under 22 million barrels last week, and had one of their biggest draws ever over the past week, and dropped down to a flat 20. And similarly, just removed the zero, so about 10% of the SPR, the cushion inventories, zone where you can no longer really pull anything out of them is uh, between 14 and 16. And there's other similar sized commercial inventories across the US that are being drawn down at similar rates. And the same is being done everywhere that has inventories, obviously. So that is continuing because the physical situation is not actually changed or alleviated. The oil doesn't teleport. And also, the whole thing kind of just went up in smoke. Although to try to subvert that, Trump started tweeting and having various news outlets insist that Israel and Hezbollah specifically, not even Lebanon this time, have just signed a peace deal, even though there was no indication of that. No one said anything to the sort, and Hezbollah and the Israeli government are both denying it and looking out with like WTF faces. So, no, this ain't really stopping. We get anybody? We got one living person and four or five total. All right, let me drink some water. And then we're shifting elsewhere. So we have had one of the biggest blows dealt in terms of oil and gas infrastructure over the course of the Russia-Ukraine war. This time, it was a actual direct blow on the oil and gas infrastructure of Moscow itself. The primary refinery for the general region around Moscow, about 20 million plus people or so, was taken out pretty thoroughly. On where were the first hits? The first hits on the first day only struck a few things. They struck a few like refining units and stuff. Didn't do too much at first, but then they kept coming. Let's get to the next one. Where the next one start? Oh, that's what I want to do. Enlarge and turn the volume off. So then I think it was Thursday morning when the massive wave started coming. And in this one in particular, you got two or three drones that end up uh, on the same video hitting targets at the same time. All of them are just like free roaming across Moscow airspace, the one where Russia has the most air defense concentrated. But nothing seems to really be doing anything. I mean, you got one random rocket that got fired there. I don't know where that's going. And now and again. And this is obviously from a distance, but this was after the fire started spreading and everything started exploding and lighting up all across that wide span there. And then other stuff started catching fire as a result of things exploding and then the debris falling further afield after that. And also, a lot of the air defense started malfunctioning, and some of the missiles just like randomly flew in to just nearby buildings as either they completely malfunctioned with their onboard electronics, or the system maybe just could not actually lock on to the drones. I guess since they're heavy, they're heavy, but they're heavy plastic, so it's not the best material for radar to be trying to get a lock onto. It's from even further distance, but you can see how big and billowy it's getting at this point. And then there's more over here as it kept coming and coming and coming. Oh yeah, there's one of the other ones. Fake news. Let's see. This is not Moscow, but that is another location that another fuel storage depot that was struck last week or the week before, and this one is completely gone. Whereas most of there's more, some more from far off distance. Don't you dare copyright me with that music, but you can see just how insanely wide and swept the whole fire became. So the Moscow regional refinery is kind of what you would call gone, which is temporarily leading to actual fuel restrictions in Moscow itself, which the government is desperately. Let me draw the hose thing there. And then I don't know, you draw that, and it has the thing, and it goes in. Then there's the screen where you pay. That looks more like an Among Us sky or something. I don't know. But oh wait, no. You draw the thing below with the different price selections. There's usually three of them. So there's actual restrictions being put, similar as with other regions. There's purchase restrictions being put in Moscow right now. Although the Russian government, I have no doubt, is going to screw over the rest of the surrounding Western Russian region to try to divert as much gasoline and diesel to Moscow stations, because Moscow is the only thing that effectively matters aside from St. Petersburg. But if it came down to a choice between those two, then the Russian government in Moscow would obviously choose Moscow. So, but that's going to still take a few days. In the meanwhile, prices in not just Moscow region, but all the other various regions, like the regions bordering Ukraine, where a lot of the storage depots and smaller refineries have been taken out, and some other uh, kind of randomly scattered regions around have seen the prices rise. It's varied widely or wildly, but from about 92 cents equivalent per liter, which comes out to like $3.40 per gallon. Before a couple of months ago, theirs not being tied into the Iran war, theirs being tied into all of this massive oil and gas infrastructure destruction, to prices now in the affected regions, which now includes Moscow, of between $1.25 and $1.40 per liter, which is uh, roughly between like $4.80 and $5.50 per gallon. So join us, my brothers, I guess. Although technically I'm not in the high price thing, because this specific area that I'm in exile in, is for some reason really price suppressed compared to even the surrounding immediate area. The local fuel stations all around my parents' place are like compensating by charging $8 for like a bottle of Coca-Cola instead, versus like I don't know, charging $4 or $5 for it in the convenience store previously. This is, I think, the turret toss video, or sorry, the tank top toss video. So that is the roof of a oil or fuel depot storage tank that got blown off when one of the wayward missile, well, air defense missiles that was trying to shoot down the drones ended up striking it. I got black oil rain coming down around Moscow now, along with the overhanging oil cloud. Uh, that's the Oh, you can see these like nets and cages draped over everything that don't really work. Again, the only real way to mass down uh, both regular uh, for the large drones at least, like Shaheeds, or in Ukraine's case, the Beaver drones. The only For them, you can have ground-based systems with basically like a somewhat smaller version of a CIWS cannon minigun, but because it's firing rounds, the range on that is limited to interception within like a few kilometers. So you would have to have a number of them around each rough target area. For the stuff on like the front lines that everything has devolved into now, for the quad rotor drone stuff, with the little grenades like duct taped to the underside of them. Apart from a fast acting like one shot, one kill autocannon, the only other like legitimate solution that's been devised thus far is to have on multiple vehicles, you can mount a rotating, basically a rotating microwave dish, and there's a specific uh, band of microwave slash radio waves that you can just pulse out once in a sweep, and it will fry any electronics that it comes across. However, the range of that effect drops off precipitously. I think it's like only 2 to 3 miles or kilometers in the air. So it can't. It's not going to wipe out like a huge area, and it will be best to use it once the approaching drones are like in really close, so that one sweep can take them all out. But that then translates into, because of the low coverage, you would need a lot of these, and the coverage, paying for a lot of those for the sheer scale of coverage you might be looking for, versus paying for those cheap little like uh what was that what was the old little store in malls, electronic store in the malls names, not like Radio Shack or something, just like emptying out the shelves at the little drone store in like a shopping mall and duct taping grenades to them. The costs of the two things just do not compare to each other. Let's see, we get anybody else? No, nobody who's alive at least. Okay, now a bunch of new people showed up. Okay, you guys missed a fair amount of stuff, but you can just scroll back along the timeline. As always, it's live, so you can go back to the beginning and everything. Let's see. pretty much everything. Yeah, most of the other bookmarks were just more footage of stuff from the Moscow area refinery ceasing to exist, and also the fires spreading and everything, and more Trump mental meltdown stuff. Oh yeah, that's still going on. That's more footage from the Russian supply line stuff to Crimea, which is primarily going via the overland highway, which, despite how far off the front line is now within range, striking range of, it has been for a few months, newer ultra long range little quad rotor drones. They're I don't know if these ones are being controlled by like Starlink or something, or if they're just spooling out 100-mile long fiber optic cables. If the second one's the case, that's going to be a really big issue in the future to deal with. But the road there, despite being so far off, is now uh, pretty firmly within striking range. So a huge amount of stuff has been getting taken out coming to and from Crimea. Primary target has, of course, been fuel trucks bringing shipments in to fill fuel stations around the peninsula, as the various loading ports have been heavily damaged, and the various actual depots and storage points around the peninsula were also taken out. And Russia does not seem to want to use the Kerch Bridge because they don't want it to be targeted. But part of the point of doing this whole campaign against the overland road now is pushing things to a point where that becomes the only viable means to do stuff, at which point then the bridge will obviously be targeted again. A few times they have loaded up ferries with tanker trucks, fuel tanker trucks, and have had just, 100 fully loaded, ready to explode tanker trucks all packed together really tight in a parking lot, waiting to load onto a ferry where they will also be all crammed together really tight, waiting to explode and take the ferry with them, obviously. I think that is everything for there. Oh, and some good news. Some uh, European nations have unstupidified themselves. So apart from, uh, previously I'd frequently said that, Norway, uh, Sumi, and partially Sweden, partially Sverige, uh, or Sverige or Sverige or Sverige or something. You guys kind of qualify, but it's mostly Norway and Finland, or Norway and Sumi. Whereas the rest of the continent, or sorry, Polska, uh, is also intelligent in most regards. I do have a few issues with them, but some others have started to unstupidify themselves energy wise. Unfortunately, not Germany, not Deutschland, but the UK, Belgique, Switzerland, and Italia have all suddenly said that, for one, they're going to stop decommissioning and shutting down their nuclear plants, and for two, they're actually going to lean back into expanding nuclear power. So finally, some some EU stupidification is happening, only to a few countries so far. But the smart, the mostly smart four remain smart. But now we have four who are, and I don't know, I'll give France half credit, especially on energy stuff, but on a lot of other things, you guys have some issues. But the Smart Four will remain just the Smart Four for the time being. But now we have four who are at least not veering off down bad pathways anymore. Although the UK, for all intents and purposes, you guys are still kind of self screwed. But Belgium, Switzerland, Italy, all right, we'll see where you might also go after this. And still end up, hey, none of the usual people are here at least. Again, for anybody who showed up just in the last few minutes, scroll back along the timeline and you can go back and see everything you missed. For anybody who's new, let me come out here, deactivate Epic Pen, go over to here. For anybody who's new, who's never been here before, shut up advertisements. If you go down here in the description under the stream or any video I've made in the last 2 years or so, under the PayPal and Patreon links, there's a free access drive folder. This is off screen, the main body of work I do. This is a whole bunch of folders that are freely accessible, that are full of different graphs and stuff across all different types of groups of data. For example, like electricity, average electricity demands of countries over time, or electricity generation by source. Example, like say Algeria, 97% gas fired, 3% solar. There's all different types of data in here, oil stuff, oil demand, oil production, how much oil everybody's pumping out, like say Brazil's oil output over the years. There's all different kinds of stuff. This is all free to access at any time. There's no paywall. The pay buttons are optional, obviously, but that's always there. That's one of the main things I'm actually doing. Technically, more time is spent on those graphs and stuff than is actually spent on streaming or the videos, especially on streaming now because it's kind of a way to sort of cheat and not have to put in so much time actually doing video editing. And I think that was basically it. I don't think there was anything else, any other major specific thing. And none of the usual people who are here, usually bombarding questions and everything, are around. So it's probably going to cut off soon unless anything comes up. So I'll wait like 30 seconds or so for the broadcast delay. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right. Nothing else then. That is where it ends. I will see you guys around next time.